Yes, my friend, welcome, welcome. This is Spoken Synergy, our podcast. I'm so excited to talk to you today, and I've got a whole bunch of questions. Welcome. I just saw that you are now Canada's top tarot reader.
According to Google.
How excited! That's so good.
Yeah, thank
Okay.
you. I've I've been at this for a while, and then I was going through analytics, and one of my clients actually reached out. He found me through an AI platform called Perplexity. Have you heard of that?
No.
It's poised to take Google by storm and eclipse Google. So he's like, "Oh, you got to check it out." That's how I found you. So I go on Perplexity, which is all search engines combined and using AI, and
Wow.
you type in who's the number one tarot reader of Canada. And I was like, oh, okay. That's he wasn't kidding. So
That's amazing.
yeah, thank you.
Okay. What a title. Well, I know you've been working hard to serve many people with your readings and everything else. But welcome to the space. My first question, I would really just love to know about how you got there. What's the story of Chris Bennet getting to this place of being number one tarot reader in Canada?
Wild, right? So when I was a kid, I was always fascinated by psychic arts, and I knew my grandmother was psychic, but she died at 38, so I never really got to ask her anything. I was kept in open dialogue with her, as the weird kids do, speaking with their deceased grandmothers. And then when I was 17, I met a very gifted, profoundly gifted psychic medium named Bro Perkins, who's based out of Toronto. And we met online on ICQ. I don't know if you remember that from the late 90s, early 2000s, but he was so gifted. I said, "Oh yeah, prove it. Like you're psychic." And he's like, "Yeah, you're the lettering on your shirt says CATS, like cats." And I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm wearing a shirt that says cats." And there's no video back then. So we chatted for years, and then I flew out to Toronto to go meet him. Uh, Far across Canada. I was from Calgary, which is a completely separate province. It's a long 4 hour trip on a plane, and didn't tell my parents that's what I was doing because I was a crazy rebel. And from there, we held a very significant seance that forever changed my point of view. And I was very skeptical of even myself and any kind of clairvoyant interactions, and was like, oh, it's just flirting with psychosis. But when I physically, tangibly saw an apparition in front of me with this person who's speaking with people on the other side, and it was witnessed by everyone else there, that's what opened my eyes. I'm like, oh, okay. It's a real thing that we're doing here. So I shuffled it off. I didn't make a career out of it just yet. I did a few readings for friends and family friends and whatnot, and then started climbing the corporate ladder. And then from there, when I got to the top of the pile in that world, my sister was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, and she lived. Long story short, she lived. But I was doing hair at the time for one of my favorite actresses, Toni Collette, who I was the mom from The Sixth Sense. I was like, oh, this is crazy, wonderful, fantastic human. And I gave her a reading, and at the end of it, she said, "You need to do this for a living." I said, it's pretty weird. She's like, acting is pretty weird. I'm like, yeah, it is actually. And then all of a sudden, it just broke all the walls down, and I said, you know what? I'm making the jump. I'm going to do it. And so committed full time, and it's been wildly successful. And she was right. So
Wow, straight from Tony's mouth.
yeah,
So, how long ago was the reading with Tony?
that was 2 years ago.
Okay.
We were
Okay.
working on a TV show called The Power for Amazon. I was a
Ah,
hairdresser for film, and it was great. It's what I always dreamed of from when I was a little kid. I just wanted to work adjacent to actors because I could see what that took to be on stage, and it's an emotional investment, and they milk you of your emotions. That's why they get paid so much. But then I wanted to be part of that narrative and part of character continuity, and I think managing scripts and seeing where characters were coming from, what their motivations are, and what kind of physical changes would be portrayed with that. and breaking down everything, breaking down characters, and seeing the archetypes and any kind of foreshadowing was my favorite. Anytime I watch a movie, I look at the first 10 minutes will tell you everything about what's going to happen.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Pay attention to that now. So that's really interesting. You were drawn into an industry. It kind of sounds like knowing that there'd be a certain type of people in there, a certain type of dedication and complexity of character. And then someone presented as like a pivotal point in your journey, which happens, doesn't it? It's like we have these sort of places in our journey where we pivot and change, and here you are now, full force. So I'm wondering if there's any similarities in that industry and all the actors that you're working alongside, and now some of the spirits that you talk to in your work. Do you notice any similarities or
Oh,
character?
the big personalities.
Yeah.
Actors are their own breed. They're I call them feral theater children. They're it's almost they call it a play for a reason. I learned this from Cole Sprouse, an actor that I worked with, and he said they call it a play because they give all the freedoms for adults to act as children to play. So that's something that I learned through him. So spiritually, I find a lot of actors at some point are drawn to more metaphysical meanings or more spiritual meanings to find the underlying layer of life. They're all looking at what the driving force is for beyond themselves, how they can interact with negative space, how silence plays a big part. So yeah, there's a bit of continuity of character with the people that I speak with on the other side, and it's more looking at flashes of memories and then kind of piecing it together. Symbolism is everything to me. So when I see a symbol in my mind pertaining to someone who's no longer with us on this physical plane, I have to piece together what that may mean in regards to their character.
Mm, really, really cool. So for anyone that hasn't had a reading with you and doesn't know your work, your main tool is tarot, is that right?
So I do two different kinds of readings. I do a psychic reading, which is reliant on tarot cards to provide snapshots of psychological windows. If between you and I and everyone else who's listening, it creates a barrier between myself and the clients. That way I can stare into something instead of just staring wall-eyed, being like, does the letter J mean something to you? I'm looking at snapshots of who this person may be, and then it just all of a sudden comes together and I start seeing certain colors popping out, and that will give me a subliminal message of, oh, this symbol for Taurus will illuminate, and I'm like, oh, this person and this is a male and this is what's going on here. It just starts piecing together a really sharp narrative, and more so the cards, it's like going through an art gallery on shuffle with someone who's really sensitive to all the different symbols within them, and kind of going through that with a curator. It's quite self-reflective, but I really honor anything that comes up clairvoyantly. So anything that pops into my head, I just say it as it is, and usually the more obscure it is, the more sense it makes to them.
Mm, okay, so that's the psychic reading part.
Yeah, and then the other part is mediumship reading. So I have separated the two because it's completely different frequencies, very different. Um, so the mediumship reading, I get a bit of anxiety going into it because it's such a delicate space, grief, and I'm honored to be a part of someone's journey. So I do get a little, I'm like, oh, I hope I can give them the best, but then that's my ego just champing at the bit, trying to be a bit of a people pleaser or whatever. And then as soon as I'm able to slip into um, that different state of mind, it's quite lucid. It almost feels like you're about to enter a dream state, and then all of a sudden I'll see snapshots and images and number of siblings or perhaps who they were in life, and I'll just say it as I see it, and it usually means absolutely nothing to me. And my number one rule is don't feed the psychics. I get so many people who will just start saying, oh, I'm looking forward to connecting with my loved one Marilyn, and she died like this, and I'm like, you didn't really leave much for me to say, did you? Like, do you need a therapy session?
Right. Right. Right.
So that's something that I urge anyone watching this to do is don't feed the psychics. Don't give people information if you're looking for a truly paranormal experience. It's a very delicate thing that we do. And it's not available on tap like some cheap beer. It's a very dedicated state of mind that we have to enter and maintain in order to get that connection. And not every connection is going to be as strong as what you see on TV. It can sometimes be very subtle and soft, and if there's multiple different spirits around, it's almost like a party chat being open. And I'm like, okay, so we've got the ant over here, we've got this over here, and all the information is all convoluted. So it's my job to make sense of it.
Okay. Yeah, that's really interesting. So for someone going into a psychic reading, maybe if they haven't been in one before, they're just there to receive. Is that right? They don't need to feed information, give you a backstory.
Don't don't give it, wait till the end of the session, especially your first session with someone. I go full mythbusters. Like, you want to make sure that they genuinely have a paranormal ability. After doing so many psychic fairs and exchanging readings with some of my colleagues from these fairs, I'm like, wow, why are you asking so many questions? Like, what, shouldn't you just spout off what you see and be a conduit of information, and then at the end say, okay, well, what did that mean for you? But I noticed that a majority will just do the opposite. And I try to encourage clients, anyone seeing anyone intuitive or psychic, guard yourself, go at it as a skeptic. You don't have to be full cold and lack of emotion. We're still human, but just don't give any information. That's it. Wait till the end. Just a yes or no. Say, yes, that's correct. No, that's not correct. Because our goal is to remove our ego and be an open conduit psychologically for information that means nothing to us.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Just check something. Make sure that that's recording on the Zoom.
Yep.
You said that it was. I just need to make sure.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's all good.
Could you imagine?
We have to start again. Um, I think that's really beneficial. I I guess there's a distinction between a psychic reading and maybe a spiritual counseling session. And every psychic, every practitioner can really call themselves what they like, but getting that raw information and then I guess it takes a lot of effort and work for you. But then as someone receiving it, you sort of want to put the information together in your own mind.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't that benefit both? So instead of me showing up saying, like, I want to talk to my aunt who crossed over 2 years ago and I'm just really upset and I want to hear her voice, that's just me wanting you to accept what I want and give it to me. But
Mm-hmm.
if we just
Yeah,
go into a purely open space, it's really like, well, does that aunt even want to come forward? And is there something
exactly.
that
Yeah.
we can be exploring here? Like, um, your grief in a different way. So I really like that distinction. And it sounds like you've got there through legitimate personal experience, which is great. And it might give people out there a greater understanding of what these readings are for, um, rather than it just being a therapy session was a completely different modality. What's the experience like for you as the psychic? So you talked a little bit about how it comes through. Do you get energy? Do you get drained? Is it chaotic? Is it like many people yelling at you at once? And
No, it's not yelling, it's symbols. So it'll start with usually an emotion. So I've just finished 3 readings today, and the last one was a mediumship reading. So I'm still in that lucid state right now. But this, for example, in Canada right now, it's colder weather, and the room that I'm in is pretty tepid, and so I'll have a sweater on, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I'm getting actually quite hot, and I'll take my sweater off or what have you, and then all of a sudden I'll start getting a bit of an emotional tone that doesn't belong to me, or maybe you know what, it does belong to me. It's just being orchestrated. It's my own emotions, but it's being imprinted with someone else's energy, and then from there, that's when I know that there's a connection. I get that anxiety leaves me and I have an emotion, and from there I kind of expand into that. I breathe into it, and whatever symbols pop up in my mind, the very first one is usually correct. So Don't second guess it. If you are wondering if you have psychic abilities yourself, it's almost like watching a television screen of your own consciousness. It reminds me of right before you go to sleep and you get a whole bunch of images coming in, almost like what's that movie Minority Report, where you're like, oh, I'm going this way. And you just have to kind of see what is coming at you quite quickly. And for example, one client, um, her screen wasn't on, never met her before. She found me, friend of a friend, didn't even tell me what friend. A great blind study, very scientific. I loved it. And the first thing I saw was a dish of candy. I'm like, that is so vague. I don't even want to say that. I don't know what it means. And then I tried kind of shuffling it off and seeing something else. And all of a sudden I saw one of those like peppermint candies wrapped in like with the twist wrappers up front and center. I'm like, candy. And then the lady went silent and I'm like, I don't, I don't know what else to make of this. Just give me a minute. I'm just waiting for more to come through. And she was sobbing and she said that was her name. Her name was Candace. And I'm like, oh my God, what?
Mm. Right, right, right. So it's almost like you're getting pieces to the puzzle or breadcrumbs or code or symbols, and then you're putting it together. But um, what part of your brain do you feel like you're using? Obviously, you'd have to use a bit of your logical brain, but you're also getting the messages. So is it like different parts of your mind are collaborating there, or you're just purely relaying the information and they confirm or deny it?
That's a good question. I feel like what brain at that point? I've checked out. I just I feel like I'm just watching everything happen. Not like I'm getting possessed or anything. It's more being psychically open, and psyche just means like your own spirit, your own psychology, your own makeup. You're open. You're allowing yourself to be an open conduit for any information that comes through, and um, it feels like I'm just watching that, and then I have to decipher it. And if I can't figure it out, I'll just say it point blank. But feels like I'm either using all of my brain or none of my brain, and more so something above and beyond myself. And it's not to say that it's upwards and outwards, but I am getting information from, I want to say, my spirit team, from people who are very beneficial celestial beings that have been with me since birth. I don't have their names. I just know that they've been present and they've been very beneficial in a lot of ways, a lot of scenarios, and they're the ones who help make sense of it all. So, protocol that I learned again through my friend Brough Perkins, based out of Toronto. His protocol is to write down 1 to 3 questions on paper and to leave that paper face up prior to your reading. And it gives his spirit team, our spirit team, to time to answer those questions with maximum efficiency. So that's a protocol that I also invested in because I'm like, that's different. That's something that can really um, allow proof of concept, allow proof of paranormal ability, essentially. So, and then it gives my spirit team enough time to give me exact symbols that would help me answer those questions without knowing what they are.
Yeah, I love that. That's super clear around like a method so you can really sit in that open place when you're in a reading. So
Mhm.
do you believe that everyone has psychic abilities?
No, no,
No.
I don't. And I see so many ShamWows out there just hustling, selling you some sort of system, being like, we are all psychic. You can learn this. And I'm like, no, they can't. I don't believe that. I feel like we all have an ability to be sensitive, but not all of us are. I think all of us have the ability to cut each other's hair, but not all of us should, you know? Not that you're in the market for a haircut. It's more that I learned this really quickly when I went to get a coffee somewhere before a psychic fair, and I was already in that sensitive kind of state, and I'm excited for the fair, and I know it's going to be a very busy day ahead. I'm in line to get coffee, and I asked the guy at the other side of the counter, there's like a beeping sound going off. I'm like, oh, do you hear that in your sleep? And he's like, all right, did you hear that in your dreams? He's like, what dreams? And he wasn't even being facetious. He was like, I don't I don't remember my dreams. I'm like, oh. Oh, right. I guess that's different. So when I was a kid, I always thought everyone had the same kind of outlets, art, expression, creativity.
Right.
Not everyone does. Not
Mm.
everyone has that cerebral function of seeing symbols or imagining an apple right now if I asked you to. Not everyone can picture it, the texture, the crunch, the feeling, the aroma that comes with it. Um, so I think if you can visualize things, you can hold an image in your mind, you have a very strong potential. If you dream in color, which not everyone does, that's a very strong potential. And if you are looking at increasing those gifts and you have that starter point, start a dream journal. Be consistent with it every single day that you go to bed. Say, I'm going to wake up and remember my dreams. And
Mm.
whoever's sleeping next to you will think you're absolutely crazy for saying that out loud. But then write them down, and it shortens the leash between your um, cognizant brain and your subconscious. Really shortens the leash between it, and then you can have a stronger sense of working relationship with your subconscious.
Yeah, I love that. That's really, really instructive. So what about what about the spirits that you talk to that have crossed over? Are they ready and willing to visit and say things? Are some of them not so willing? Are they grumpy? Are they moody? Are they emotional?
All of it, yeah. It feels like I'm at Grand Central Station waiting for somebody's aunt to show up that I've never met before, and then hoping that she's a nice person. So um, all of it. I don't entertain the frequencies of non non-communicative. If somebody's holding on to a grudge or quite I want to say low vibrational, I'm not available to that in life or death. I have very, very strong boundaries and I communicate them in every way possible. So I'm only available to people who want to communicate, have a very beneficial message to pass on. And sometimes they can come with very spicy memories. I've seen other people's very specific trauma that has crippled them from when they were a child that I can't unsee. I once read for a murderer, and he was great. He didn't tell me anything. Looked like some average guy who would have worked at Costco or IKEA or wherever. And he halfway through a tarot reading, which is not supposed to have any kind of inkling of other people coming in, I kept seeing an elder lady and I saw an initial, and then I saw blood splattered and I saw a knife and it was all sharp. And I was like, I got to the near end of the reading. I said, do you know something about this? I can't ignore it. It's popped up a few times. And he broke down and it was no longer about his life. It was no longer about maybe that's why she came through because it's such a profound connection with where he is in his life. But it was no longer about, his career and what he's navigating through. All of a sudden he crumbled and was like, I had a psychotic snap at one point and I was involved in that person's exit of life. He the way he put it too, you could tell he's gone through an evolution, but he wondered what he's supposed to do with that going forward. And I said, she don't let her die in vain. You can't let that lady's that life go. You have to every single day, every moment that you have has to be selfless. It's got to be for other people, and you've got to volunteer. You've got to continue serving your time for the rest of your life. Otherwise, you've got to pick up the slack for her too. You've got to live two lives. So
Yeah, beautiful. I think that's also beautiful advice to give someone that's obviously battling with what happened, and then we can hope for a sense of balance, right? If you take
mhm.
life and you got to make it count. Um, that's a really interesting experience as part of your profession. I'm sure that would have did it affect you? Was it difficult?
Oh, I went to the local Legion down the street after, and I drank like a forensic scientist who just saw too much. The bartender was probably like, "What does this guy do for a living?" And I'm like, just leave the bottle." Just
Yeah, well, I guess That's the difficult parts of the job, right? You're exposed to people's
Psyche.
psyche, and that isn't easy. And being so open and receptive all the time mustn't be, it must be challenging at times. Walk me through what you have to do to stay in touch with your gifts. Do you have to develop them? Is it like, is there a kind of psychic gym routine of sorts? Is there a way that you protect yourself? Walk me through that part.
Absolutely. It's a psychic gym is correct. So it's a muscle. Your imagination's a muscle. You have to play with it. You have to get to know it. You have to expand it constantly. So every single day, meditation is a requirement for this work. It's a baseline. Between each client, I have to have 1 full hour between each client to not only walk my dogs, but to go completely deep belly breathe through my diaphragm, expand that, relax my emotions, neutralize everything, and get to a place of absolute neutrality, complete and totally passive, watching my own thoughts. Um, and I can get to it a lot quicker now, but a lot of psychic work requires a trance-like state, lucid, lucid dreaming while you're awake, entertaining thought forms, um, an awareness that is above and beyond what's in front of you, expanding the peripheral consciousness. All of this comes from consistent meditation. So that is something that I have to do all the time. And then I also use affirmations. I'm a huge fan of that. Huge fan of affirmations. It's rewiring your brain. Anytime you've ever met someone who, after New Year's, they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm quitting smoking this time for good." I'm like, "Do you see yourself as a non-smoker?"
Mm.
And the very first word out of their mouth will tell you whether or not they are going to quit. It's usually no, but I'm really trying, and I'm doing everything differently. The first word was no. It'll be like a train just like running by, but the first word at the gate was no. So if you can see yourself as something and visualize yourself and feel it, I genuinely believe that you can rewire your active brain, your cerebral consciousness to entertain it at least. So um, that's something that I listen to on repeated. There's an app that I found called Think Up, and and then there's another app that I combine with it called, I think it's called Brainwaves. Both of these are non-subscription. I don't like subscriptions.
Nice.
So it's Brainwaves Pro and Think Up. And both of those, I program the Think Up with, I whisper into a microphone, I am psychic. I can hear the thoughts of other people. I can decipher thoughts of my own from others. And like, I think I've got 150 affirmations that I've put on there. And it's all gentle whispers. And they play on repeat as I sleep with headphones on. And then Brainwaves plays binaural beats. So that's half an octave lower on one side and half an octave higher. And your brain makes up the third note that doesn't technically exist. So
Wow.
if you focus on that imaginary note that doesn't exist, but you can hear it. It sounds like waves, and then all of a sudden you'll be like, "Oh, there's a third note," and all of a sudden, boom, you're out. You're either dead asleep or in a trance, and all the affirmations that play on repeat that are very almost silent, you can just hear like, but they sink in as you sleep. So that's been 2 years of doing that.
Amazing. I'm
Mhm.
going to look those up.
Oh, I live by it.
And what's the worst thing you could do for your psychic gifts? Like if you wanted to shut it down, derail it really, really quickly, what's the worst thing you could do from a self-care point of view?
Be selfish, make selfish decisions. Acts of service will open this up even more and connect you on a much greater level. Giving back selflessly your time, effort, money, connecting with other people, helping people whose basic human needs are compromised, that will activate more of it. To diminish it, you have to treat life like a waiting room and keep doing everything that's more selfish than anything, that will dull your senses quicker than anything.
Mm.
Um, Chasing money, chasing problems, really it's easy to be selfish. It's the path of least resistance. Society, everything that we've built is catered to a sense of luxury and comfort. And I think genuine spirituality is found in suffering. And if not ours, then it's relating through compassion of other people's suffering and putting yourself on the front line for what other people are going through, and being there, not to help. Help comes from ego. That's something I learned. It's actively listening to other people and asking the right kind of questions to make sure that they feel validated in your presence. That will open more of this.
Yeah. Wow, that's beautiful. I think there's so many slogans in there you could turn into t-shirts and wear to your psychic fairs. There was a lot of gold in there. I think you said genuine spirituality is about suffering.
It is. It's unfortunate, um, and it's a lot easier to insulate ourselves from suffering. It's so much easier, and like accumulating wealth, chasing all that. But seeing people at the end of their lives, well, that matters. It's accomplishments and regrets. That's all we get a list of, and what you learned about love or yourself or your family, what lessons you learned. I always remind people in film, they work 16 hours a day, approximately, sometimes more. And then last minute, they'll say, "Oh, you're working Saturday this weekend." You're like, "Oh, great. Do you have an option? Do you want your job next Monday? We can get someone else. It's okay." Um, so you kind of get stuck in that. And I would always remind people, because I was that annoying, upbeat, outgoing, like even on the 16th hour, I'm like, "Ooh, we're making overtime. Aren't you guys excited?" And people will be like, can we kill him?" Like, but I'd remind people, I'm like, you don't get to bring money to the grave. Like, what are we here to learn right now? What are you learning? And then all of a sudden they'd be like, "Oh, you're right. Like, whoa, forgot we're gonna die." I'm like, yeah, moment by moment, that's all we get if you're lucky. So um I would remind people that in very trying times, like, I could see their human spirit was being crushed by an unforgiving, unrelenting industry that would run them over. And I would just say, "You don't get to bring money to the grave. I'm glad to see you here." Like,
Yeah. Yeah, it must be such a refreshing perspective in an industry like that. So I'm sure you did some good work there. And
oh yeah.
what are the you're going to the psychic fairs, you're working with people full-time psychic reader. What are the problems and the things that people are coming to you for? Do you see any patterns? Do you see anything that we're all dealing with at the moment?
Oh, you've got such good questions. Yeah, that's seeing what people are going through. That's my barometer. Um, and psychic fairs, there's no beating around that. Like, if somebody were to book an appointment, at the back of their mind they're like, "Oh, you could figure me out through like Facebook." First of all, I don't even have Facebook. um Psychic fairs, somebody shows up, they sit in front of you. You don't know anything about them. It's the ultimate blind science test, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people's issues are, it's through communication. We're all being pulled thin. Everyone seems to be diagnosed with ADHD at this point, because it's a lot easier to doom scroll, to self sabotage through those things that we talked about, of just being self soothing aspects, treating life like a waiting room, games on our phone, getting sucked into that little display and getting dopamine hits for our squirrely little brains. And it takes away from being present, it takes away from partnership. Partnership is ongoing. It's always asking how somebody is doing, how they navigated something, what did they learn. It goes beyond how your day was. I think that's something that most of us will just ask while we're doom scrolling, is like, "How was your day, babe?" And then you don't really actually listen to them. Really validating somebody's emotions seems to be lacking in today's day and age. And then a false sense of connection online, or a genuine sense of connection that's taking you away from the people that actually love you or the places that love you. Loneliness, I think we're in a really serious loneliness epidemic. Even people in some, what people would be successful relationships or financially successful positions, they don't see it that way. They feel empty, hollow, missing a puzzle piece. and that comes with vulnerability. Um, but yeah, I think we're in the shadow of COVID right now. Um,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
it's
Agree with a lot of that.
some of the most socially outgoing people who I thought would be, you know, just social butterflies, connecting everyone, not afraid to start a conversation, connecting people. They're shot. They are emotionally shot. Are they're not able to do that anymore because of what they've gone through. And then the dating world is completely our mating ritual as humans has been reduced to sitting on a toilet swiping left or right to get an ego biscuit. What is that? What is that? That's it's more than it should be more than attraction, and collecting people to say, hey, look at all these people that think I'm attractive. Like,
Yeah.
so I think there's got to be a complete and total overhaul, complete total change, and change is terrifying for most people. So
Yeah, agreed. Particularly after a pretty scary experience, you can sort of see the survival mechanisms kick in and people starting to adjust and maybe psychologically prepare for the next. So we're seeing the aftermath of that, I would agree.
mhm.
Do you agree that psychic readers need other psychic readers? Do you get readings for yourself with other psychics?
Oh my God, I've only had really bad ones. There was only one lady that really stood out. Her name's Suzanne Walsh, and she's based out of Montreal, and she's actually really gifted. I loved every word that she said, and I don't even think she knows how psychic she is, to be honest. Like, yeah, she's a professional, outstanding website, just really gifted. But at the end of it, I was like, wow, like that's you're really fearless in pulling that information out of nowhere and just trusting to say it. Like that's just really just a fearless, very, very gifted individual. And then my friend Bro, who's booked up for like 3 months in advance, and he's like as close to a Ghostbuster as anyone will ever meet. He's profoundly gifted, and he's been doing it professionally for over 20, 25 years or so. But the psychic readings that I've had, I don't know if you know what light language is.
I definitely know what light language is.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna offend people for saying this, but I think it's whack. So there's like one lady who was like going like this, and she was belching and speaking light language. I'm like, can you just say words? Like it sounds like I'm at a really bad karate class with an autistic cat at this point. Anything, you could say anything. You could say the color blue, does that mean something to you? And I'd be like, oh my God, wow, you were great. No, it was bizarre, just nonsensical. And again, I feel like a lot of psychicism is kind of like flirting with psychosis, but that was just full tilt. Like she's in a relationship with it.
Mm. Yeah, well, I guess other people have such experiences, and the industry's like so broad. These terms, psychic reader or readings, even could really mean anything. So I understand why a lot of people are skeptical. And you're saying it's quite healthy to go into a reading skeptical, which I like.
Mhm.
Find something that resonates with you, a style, a frequency, a way of operating. I'm also wondering about, for you personally, obviously there's psychic reading, but then there's the business aspect of what you're doing. So how do you balance those? How do you juggle it? And do they work really well together? Or do you find that one is more difficult than the other?
No, I've been able to semi-automate the business part because I really love what I do, and I put that up front and center, and it's got to be sensitive. So um yes, I've got the personality of a Tupperware sales lady, ex real estate agent, on camera, and that comes from a place of fear, to be honest. Like I'm not anytime you see me speaking or on camera when there's not someone else to converse with on a reel or in any video format, I'm facing my fears. I'm actually terrified to do that. And so it's been a challenge from a lot of actors that I've worked with and people that I've listened to saying, you need to go on camera. I'm like, all right, I'll do it. And so every time I do it, I'm like, this is going to be so cringy in like a week, and I just stopped caring. And so that's the business part, is the marketing. If I ever seem overzealous with marketing, it's really battling through fears and trying to create something that really conveys my own emotions, really, and trying to show more vulnerability with that. So the business component, it's pretty semi-automated. When you book in, an automatic link appears for both of us. My calendar on my phone shows me that there's appointments, and then I run it like I give myself a paycheck every 2 weeks after taxes. It's difficult not knowing exactly how much that's going to be, but that comes with running a business. And I will never act from scarcity, because that takes away from a psychic gift, and then that puts me in the realm of, oh, I need to get this, I need to do that, and more money, more of this. No, 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 no. I live well within my means. I live very humbly. um, I saw what money has done to people and what chasing a high degree of ambition looks like. So um, facing my fears, being more vulnerable, and then semi-automating things to make the business component easy, so I can just be psychic, so I can give the best readings.
Yeah, nice. What gets you through the resistance of the marketing part? Is there anything that you say to yourself or remind yourself of?
No, I'll just do like 25 takes until and it's usually the last one that I'm like, I think I just give up, and I'm like, that's the one.
That'll do.
So that's I don't even want to rewatch it. I'm just putting it out there because I, I think it's when you really I overthink things when it comes to marketing, because I think at the back of your brain you're like, well, somebody could take a snippet of this and this could go viral for the wrong reasons. And I don't even cognizantly think of that. I think it's back there. And so that's what's this over engineering of like, okay, I've got to say it like this, present it like this. And all of a sudden I'm robotic, Tupperware sales lady being like, buy now and get this one free. Then by the end of it, I've relaxed. I'm in a more vulnerable state and more fluidity. But I really I like having the right kind of words, the right kind of meaning, no filler words. I want somebody to get the most out of it within the least amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I think a lot of us reach resistance when it comes to exposing our authentic nature online, because we are exposing ourselves to all sorts of energy. Um, yeah, my clients go through that a lot, and it's really like, yeah, there's risks, but if the outcome is that you get to work with more people and serve their needs, then that's what we have to do sometimes.
Honestly, if you ever put yourself on camera, you will get a troll eventually. And it's almost like a reward that you've unlocked.
Yes, it is.
You're like, oh wow, cool, I've made it. You see me. But most of them, most if not all, don't show their face on camera. So they're not even in the game. They're not even operating at the same level. They're not facing their fears. They're just, this is going to go out on a limb here, but I feel like a lot of the trolling aspects online, that's as demonic as it gets, because it's somebody's base low vibrational energy of bitterness, frustration, anger, resentment, and they get to just spew it online, and then it accumulates more gravity from people liking it or adding to it, and then it lives forever in a word or words online, and it expands and it gets multiplied. And to me, that's as evil as it gets. So I'm here to just turn it up. Anytime I've been faced with resistance all through my life, I got made fun of for the way I walk, and I'm like, yeah, I've got a gay walk. You're gonna probably hunch over when you're an old man. I'm gonna be a flamingo. Like, so if I'm ever met with the resistance, I just turn up this like Shakira like energy, and I'm like, I'm gonna have a dance party. You're still invited. I'm here for you. I'm just way over here for you.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. I think that's going to inspire some people for sure. All
I
right.
hope so.
Question. If someone wants to come to you for a psychic reading, and maybe they want to keep on working from that information. Is there a certain amount of readings that is beneficial? Can you have too many readings? Is there a sweet spot? Do you like working with people consecutively?
Okay, so I used to think that when I first started this, I'm like, don't rely on psychics. Like book it like once every, wait until some time has passed. But then I noticed that a lot of people seeking tarot readings are also the same people that are really looking for a great therapist to feel seen, listened to, and heard without having to say anything. I got reminded of what the healing component of this is, and that's what it is. And that's what a good therapist should do, is genuinely listen to you without you having to say too much, or maybe you do need to say a whole lot. So there's some people who, after the first meeting, I'm like, okay, just wait until, like once every 6 months or so, if you're somebody who's really eager. But then I noticed that there's some people who are really going through a really tough time, and they don't have that outlet. They don't have a registered therapist that they can check in with regularly. So I opened my books to them, and I let them know after the first meeting. I'm like, you can book in whenever you'd like. Um, it's up to you. A lot of this information may or may not change, but I do my absolute best to just see exactly what I see and say it as it is. And I don't want you really having to spill on me or dump your emotional purse out and have to sort it out. I want to do a lot of that for you without you having to vocalize a lot of your issues. Um, so I've opened up to the right kind of people who are looking for that. I'm not a therapist. Technically, we're billed under the entertainment component of the tax sector. So um, still can't escape my title as a circus worker, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess it's a different operating system. So I hear from a lot of people, they get turned away from therapy because they're told that they're fine and their problems aren't big enough. I think that's a duty of care issue, but I understand that a lot of therapists are dealing with, very deep-seated trauma. So when someone's just trying to improve their life, that can be a sense of rejection. But also finding a therapist that is open to spiritual belief systems can be tricky.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, I think that's why we often go towards readers for that sense of companionship, or you get me, or I just want to be close to spirit while I go through my problems. So I think we might even find a bit more of that going on. Psychic readers, I think, are going to be very, very busy coming up, but that's wonderful that you can open your books to people as they're going through those difficult times.
But I also remind every client, not every client, most clients, that I'm here for you. I do this for connection, first
Yeah.
and foremost. I say that at the end of almost all of my readings. Um, Listen, if you are going through something, first of all, find a registered therapist, go through all the right channels. This is for entertainment purposes only. But also, you can email me whenever. I don't have notifications on my phone. I'm never going to be bothered by anyone unless I want to be. So you can text me or on Instagram, DM me, email me. You just use me as a sounding board if you want to. I love people. I love what I do, and I'm here for more connectivity, to remind people of their own strengths in their darkest times, but also just in general. So if somebody's having difficulty seeing a perspective, stepping back and looking at their life through a bird's eye view, I think that's what a great psychic should do, is just take a look at where that continuity of character, where they're coming from, where they are, and then a potential to where they're going. It's a lot less about predictions. And the people who really rely on predictions, I have strong boundaries for you too. And I urge you to not surrender your free will to anyone. That's up for you to make a decision. Yes, I do have predictions. I do see things, and there's an accuracy to it that I'm very proud of. I don't have a guarantee on it. Otherwise, I'd be predicting lottery numbers for everyone. But there is a gray area that's pretty magical there. Don't rely on it. Take it with a grain of salt, and that's your validation that you're on the right path.
I love that. That's really, really strong too. Making sure you have that free will, and I guess using people as a sounding board is just something that we all need. But I think we get caught up in, um, you know, some traumatized relationship dynamics. So that's really beautiful that you're open to everyone. So everyone message Chris Bennet. He's lovely.
Well,
We love
yeah,
him.
come on over.
Yeah. Okay, so how can people find you? We'll put all your links below, but what are you excited about? What are you open for? What are you working on at the moment?
Okay, so I'm adding more to my website. I've I've taken more to blogging than anything because I get to again be concise with my communications. Something that I get from my dad is just always communicating very succinctly. So I've been writing more articles, more mindful of that, and it's always taking into consideration the patterns that I'm noticing within a lot of clients. So lately, I think going into a shift of seasons, there seems to be a shedding of old relationships or a change in relationships. So recently I wrote an article about how to navigate healing a broken heart. And a lot of people are trying to manifest that ideal love into their life. And where's my soulmate, my twin flame? First of all, I don't believe in twin flames or any of that. But I did start to think of what's a good exercise to turn up selflessness, to send love to someone, and then the byproduct of it, which is not something that I really want to advertise, is you actually polish up your lens and then you turn up your own radiance and you radiate love, and the right kind of people will attract to you. So you can find me on my website, www.thetarotmedium.com. Explore away. I update it regularly. And then on Instagram, the Tarot Medium, TAROTMEDIUM, and on YouTube as well. I don't really add a lot to YouTube. I should, but I feel like I'm at max capacity of just going on camera, showing up, getting sweaty palms on my 25th take, putting myself out there, and doing it all over again every single day. So every day I add content every single day. And I've actually been really inspired by you, Heather, which is why I'm here, because seeing you speak on camera, I'm like, oh yeah, she's doing what I want to do. I need more people like that in my life.
Well, and I need you to for so many reasons. So thank you for sharing all that. Thank you for being on my podcast. Thank you for speaking so openly and vulnerably. And thank you for the work that you do. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Heather. I appreciate you.
Awesome.